we don't have everything that the Joneses have back in Australia. So we're not really trying to keep up with anyone anymore. We've just got our boat and a bit of house money in the bank. And as a lot of people would probably see that as us going backwards, but for us, it's set us free.
Are you ready? All right. Hi there. Welcome to the Remote Work and Travel Show. I'm your host, Nora Dunn, and in this show, I speak with ordinary people who have extraordinary travel lifestyles and remote careers. Now, on my website, theprofessionalhobo.com, I have been writing about and living the long-term travel and remote work lifestyle since 2006. As such, I have an arsenal of over 800 articles that are not only my personal travel narratives and misadventures along the way, but also instructional content on how to plan and execute your own long-term travel lifestyle successfully and effectively. If you're not interested in reading 800 plus articles to figure out how to do it yourself, don't worry, I got you covered. Check out the show notes or the description for a link to a free checklist of 10 things you must do before you travel long term. So I've been able to distill a lot of the content and a lot of the ideas down to at least these 10 things that you need to take care of before you hit the road if you want to be able to travel effectively and stress-free. And that checklist is free. All you have to do is click the link in the description or the show notes, and it's all yours. Now, my guest today is Erin Carey. Erin is the founder of Rome Generation, the only PR agency in the world being run from a yacht. Additionally, Erin's company is 100% remote, staffed by digital nomads in different points of the globe. Rome Generation came about while Erin and her family were living on a yacht and sailing the world's oceans. However, they weren't sailors when they came up with the crazy idea of leaving the rat race and sailing away. Without letting that minor detail get in the way, Erin and her husband bought a yacht on the opposite side of the world and went on to cross the Atlantic Ocean a mere 18 months later. The family of 5 are now cruising the Mediterranean with the hopes of eventually sailing all the way back to Australia. While sailing the world, Erin has met the most inspiring people and had the good fortune of visiting the most incredible destinations. Rome Generation was created to help elevate these people, their businesses, and the destinations in the hopes of sharing the gift of travel with as many people as possible. Welcome to the show, Erin. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Hi, Nora. Thank you so much for having me.
It's funny, I've already had a few people on my show who have the sailing lifestyle. They live and work full-time on boats. I feel like this is a trend that has accelerated pretty dramatically since the pandemic began. I feel the two big trends have been van life and yacht life or boat life, as the case may be. But for you guys, you had this full-time sailing lifestyle before the pandemic began. So I'd love to start by asking you, what was that tipping point for you and your husband to launch yourselves into a full-time sailing lifestyle without any prior sailing experience?
Well, would you believe there actually wasn't a tipping point? It wasn't something that tipped us over the edge. It wasn't like the straw that broke the camel's back. We were living a life in the suburbs in kind of middle-level jobs. We had 3 children, and life, on the surface was great. It was fine, nothing to complain about. Probably what you would call living the Australian dream. But something for me didn't feel quite right. Like I knew deep down that I wasn't spending enough time with my children, and that I was worried that I was missing out on the formative years of their life. However, there was nothing concrete in plan. It was just this feeling that I had that we would do something big one day. I had no idea what it would be. I certainly would never have dreamt that it would be living on a boat. What I probably would have guessed would have been that we might have moved to Spain and been expats for 12 months and sent the kids to school or something. That's what I had in the back of my mind. But it was always something that was going to be down the track. So you probably wonder, well, how did you come to live on a boat? And it's actually a funny story. Well, not really funny, but what happened to us could happen to anyone, because it was a very regular night, and we had both finished work, finally got the kids into bed, flopped down on the couch to watch Netflix, which, is usually the highlight of your day. And we came across a documentary. Actually, my husband came across a documentary that I wasn't really intending on watching. I was going to just scroll on my phone. And he put it on, and it was a documentary by Laura Decker, or about Laura Decker, the youngest girl to ever sail around the world. and we'd never heard of it. And like I said, no intention of watching it. But he started playing it, and I just remember kind of being captivated by it and then just putting my phone down and then sitting in silence for the rest of the 90 minutes or however long it went for. And then at the end, we just both turned to each other and went, wow, that looks cool. We should do that. Like, I don't, how does that even happen? I have no idea. How does it happen to both husband and wife at the same time? Like, what are the chances of that? But my husband was on board as much as I was. So we moved straight to the computer. We started Googling families sailing around the world because at that stage we didn't even think it was possible, like safe, because we had 3 little children. The youngest was about 1 at the time. We found that it was doable, that there were actually a lot of children and families out there living on boats and sailing the world. I had no idea whether you could do it on a boat. That's how naive we were. I thought maybe you had to be on a ship because I didn't know if like personal watercraft could cross an ocean, but turns out they can. And you don't have to be in the Navy, and all of these weird misconceptions that I had. We kind of kept looking into it, and over probably the next 2 weeks, we found numerous YouTubers who were doing the same thing. So SV Delos, Sailing the Vagabond, we came across all of those great guys, and then we also came across Sailing Totem, who were a family with 3 children who had sailed around the world, and they had started up a coaching company for people exactly like us to coach people to get out on the water. Literally within probably 2-3 weeks of watching that video, we had made the decision that we were going to buy a boat and sail the world. We never said how far because, I still can't tell you how far we're going to go, but we just knew that we would sail somewhere in the world for, started off at maybe a year, but then we kind of pushed it out to 2 years, and now it's indefinite. And within 2 years and 2 months, we had sold a stack of our possessions, got 2 years leave without pay from our jobs, and flown out on one-way tickets to Grenada in the Caribbean, where we saw our boat, which we had bought sight unseen for the very first time, and began our journey.
There are so many intersections of your story and mine in what you just said. Like, I lived in Grenada for 2 years. I had that as a home base.
Oh,
But
really?
before, yeah, but before I got that home base in Grenada, that was my introduction to yacht life, because I got to know some people who own boats, because Grenada is a very popular place for people to weather the winter because it's just out of the hurricane
Mm-hmm.
zone. So I met people
Yeah.
there. And then I actually, through some connections, started my 3 months of living on boats in St. Martin, on a boat
Yeah.
on Sophisticated Lady, who I believe you know who Rick Moore of
Yeah.
Sophisticated Lady is. So I was
Yeah.
on his boat for a while, and I was in St. Martin when Laura Decker pulled in from her circumnavigation. So it was a huge event, and it was an amazing, just environment to be in, and
Yeah.
experiencing the yacht life in all its glories, and it's really an amazing lifestyle. And I only did 3 months, and I was always on other people's boats, but certainly it was a journey and a half, to be sure. Now, I'm curious. So you started off, you got your leaves of absence, and you were just dipping your toes in the water, so to speak, of the sailing lifestyle. Was it difficult to learn to sail and to really embrace this new lifestyle initially, especially with young children?
To be honest, not really. For me, I've just felt like it's been, a natural progression. Look, I'm not the best sailor in the world, and I also don't really maintain our boat. My husband does all of that. Of course, I can help him sail, but he's the captain. And in our regular marriage, I'd say we're pretty equal. But on the boat, quite happy for him to be captain and to make the final decision, because sometimes I just don't want that responsibility. But I mean, on paper, I probably don't really suit the boat life. I'm a girly girl. I like to wear, have new clothes and go shopping and wear makeup. And I'm not particularly sporty, and I don't really love the outdoors or camping. But for some reason, I love living on a boat, and I've pretty much felt at home on the boat since day one. Like, don't get me wrong, there's definitely been times where you go, oh my God, whose idea was it to live on this damn boat? It's a nightmare. And there's, things are always breaking and going wrong. But overall, I really love living on a boat. So we did a few things to prepare ourselves to come out here. I mean, my story kind of makes it sound like we were, taking a risk, but everything that we did was very calculated and well researched, and we didn't just go on a whim, let's just go buy a boat and sail away. We had 3 kids, so obviously we wanted to be as safe as possible. So in the 2 years and 2 months that we went from making the decision to leaving, we bought a little trailer sailor boat that we would practice on at home out in the bay. My dad actually used to be a sail instructor back when I was a kid, so he taught us how to sail. He used to do it on little dinghies in a inland lake, so definitely wasn't glamorous. And actually, funny story, I used to have to go along with him sometimes. When mum needed a break, he'd choose one kid out of us 3 girls to take, and we'd all roll our eyes and go, "Oh, do we have to go, Dad?" And I hated going. If you had told me back then as a kid that I would grow up to be a sailor and live on a boat, never would have believed you. But it's funny how things work out. Now I love living on a boat. My children do sailing. Just never would have seen that happening. So anyway, Dad taught us how to sail, and we just made mistakes, basically, played around on this little boat. It was 21 foot. It was big enough for us to all kind of squash into. We were so keen that we'd even sleep on board. It was so cramped, and the toilet was like a little porta potty, and there was nowhere to cook or anything. But because we were just so happy and excited to be out in the water, we loved it. We had that for about 18 months, and we learned quite a lot with that little boat. We also crewed in a sailing club or yacht club races. So every Wednesday night we'd attend those, and then we didn't do any courses or anything in sailing. We were pretty confident that we'd be able to learn on the job, so to speak. But we did do a week-long passage from New South Wales to Queensland, where we paid for the chance to go on this other person's boat and help him take it up to Queensland. I mean, you could argue why he wasn't paying us, but we were quite happy. That's how keen we were. We were quite happy to just get a chance to go on a big yacht, because we still were worried that what if we put all of this effort and time and money into it and we don't like it? So we did that, and we absolutely loved it, and we were pretty certain that when we got out on the boat that we would love it. And we did. So when we arrived, though, we knew so little that we weren't confident, because our boat was up on the hard, which means on stands on land. We weren't confident when we splashed her to get her from the point where she was splashed out to a mooring ball, which was probably only 500 meters, but that's how inexperienced we were. We had to get a newly made friend that we'd met to come on board and help us move her. And just little by little, we would learn. The first time we went out, we literally went out of the mouth of the bay and, did a couple of circles and came back in. And that was a huge achievement. And then the next time we went around to the next bay and, practiced anchoring, and we couldn't get it, but, we tried. And then the next time we managed to set the anchor. And, every time we moved, it was slightly further and slightly more successful. Of course, there were many mistakes as well. We've run aground. We've dragged, there's been definite mistakes along the way, but it happens to everyone. But what I will say is that my husband is very technically minded and logical and capable. So, I trust that he has it all under control, it's nice. I don't think you could do this if your partner wasn't that way, or you yourself, of course. I'm not technically minded, so I'm sure I could learn how to service an engine, but it's just not something I've got a desire in doing. And he's the same. He doesn't have a desire in running a business, so it works perfectly.
So that's an excellent point that you bring up, which is, of course, that everyone has to be on board. Yes, pun intended. But also, everyone's skills are very complementary. And also, there's a lot of work involved. So I definitely want to dig into the specifics of your career. But right now, I'd like to look at the lifestyle element of how you manage a remote business. Educating 3 children, I'm assuming they're all on, because they're different ages, they all require different curriculums. And then also managing the daily tasks of life on a boat, which are practically a full-time job unto themselves. And I don't know if your husband also has a remote job or career as well. Like, how do you do it all? Because that is a lot.
It is, and to be honest, my husband doesn't have a remote career because that would be literally impossible. I've
Okay.
heard of some people where both, mum and dad work. I don't know how they would physically do that. We don't stop. We go all day and we flop in bed at 8:39 at night once the kids have gone down. And we haven't sat down that whole day, obviously, besides me sitting at my desk, but we haven't relaxed all day. Look, it's not that different to living at home. You work hard. The kids are, they need a lot of attention and to be looked after. They're constantly hungry or constantly bored or constantly, want to do something. They're kids, and that doesn't really change when you get out on a boat. Luckily, my husband and I are a good team, so he homeschools the kids. I did it the first time around because we've kind of had two journeys. We've had the first 2 year sabbatical where we cruised the Caribbean. Then the coronavirus happened and we went home for 18 months, and now we're back out here again. So the first time around, I did the homeschool and he kind of helped, and it was extremely challenging. And that was when we were kind of making up the curriculum ourselves. And so this time around, we knew that that was something we did not want to do. We wanted to be able to open a computer and for them to be told exactly what to do each day and for us to just have to supervise. So in theory, that sounds amazing, but none of them are proactive enough or diligent enough. They're all boys. They don't want to do school. So none of them are diligent enough to actually sit and do their school. So it's a challenge. Every day my husband has to monitor three different children who are all being difficult, and the little one's 7, and he's like doing handstands and swinging around the mast and swinging off the side of the boat, and he's come and do your maths. And honestly, his school would take about 40 minutes, but it drags out for about at least half of the day. And the other two aren't a lot better. The oldest one's 12, so he's getting better, but it's a lot of work. My husband would work from probably 8:30 in the morning to about 1, and then finally school's over. But by that time, he's exhausted because he's also an introvert. So for him to have to do that is a big challenge. And then his second job starts, and that's maintaining the boat. And honestly, that is enough to be, a part-time every day, every afternoon. He's got a job to attend to because things are always broken, as you would know, on the boat. So if it wasn't for him, obviously I wouldn't be able to run my business. But it's not a perfect balance because I have the luxury of being in here. My doors are shut. I get to speak to people on Zoom, and I have my contractors that work for me that I get to talk to on and off during the day. And he's out there stuck with 3 children, and his job's not as fun as mine. So I don't long term, I don't know really if it's going to continue to work this way. We're looking to stop for a little bit and put the kids into school because we feel like we need a break, they need a break. Well, my husband definitely needs a break. So maybe that will work for a little while, but they're also at the stage now where they are reminding us daily that they don't have any friends out here. And I don't know if that's to do with the coronavirus, but it's also previously what I read, even before the coronavirus, is that there are less children living on boats over here in the Mediterranean than there are in the Caribbean. So we had hundreds of children in the Caribbean, and it was like summer camp. They had an amazing time. There were always organized activities and sleepovers, and they made the best of friends. Out here during the last 8 months, we've only really met 1 or 2 families the entire time, and that was only for about a 3-week period. So the children miss other kids, and so that makes it a lot harder. But we have we're going to Italy next, and apparently there are going to be several other boat kids there. So we're kind of like crossing our fingers, and I mean that's the way boat life goes. It's not always great, and there are different seasons, and we're in a season now where we're kind of not having the most amazing time. It's still great, and I still am very grateful that we're out here and that we're living this lifestyle. But unfortunately, you have to take the bad with the good, kind of with boat life, and you know that the good times will always come back because it's just kind of how it works. There's always highs, there's always lows. The highs luckily always outweigh the lows, but at the moment we're in a little bit of a low. We're in Tunisia, which is amazing, and people are lovely. The food is delicious. It's really cheap here. So they're definitely the good things about it. but then there's not really any green space and nowhere for the kids to play, and none of the children really speak English. So yeah, there's definitely challenging elements about it at the moment.
And I think that is a metaphor for life in general. It's just, in my experience, when you are traveling long term or full time, and or have a lifestyle of full time boat life, as an example, all of life's ups and downs and swings and roundabouts tend to be at just turned up a few notches in terms of the level of technicolor that you experience these things. It's everything is just a little bit more dramatic, and we feel everything a little bit more intensely when we're on the road. You made a point earlier that I think was excellent, in that, towards the beginning of this interview, you said you figured this is probably an indefinite lifestyle, but then you also mentioned just now that you're thinking that you might stop for a while and enroll the kids in school. And this is an excellent point that I want to underscore, because the long-term and full-time travel lifestyle is not a life sentence. And it is something that can be designed to be exactly what you need in any given moment, and redesigned if you need something else in the next moment. And that's the beauty of lifestyle design, is to have that flexibility and that ability to change your life and what you're doing according to what it is that you want to experience or need to experience. And I imagine as your children grow, you may need to iterate and reiterate again. And you have that ability and flexibility to look into your magic crystal ball. You did mention earlier that you felt that this would be an indefinite lifestyle. Now, do you, in your heart of hearts, do you think that this might be a full-time thing, as in, hey, this is a forever, or at least as long as I can envision forever to be lifestyle? Or is there some, in the back of your head, is there some kind of progression that you're feeling that this is leading you towards in terms of the landscape of your life?
Look, I definitely think this is a progression. We said all along that we would do the boat life as long as it was fun. So when we went back to Australia, it was a great wake-up call, because we went back because our cruising kitty was getting low, so we knew we had to go back to earn more money. And also it was a kind of at a turning point. We were ready for a break from the boat, and as it would happen, coronavirus happened not long after, and we had no choice. So what was meant to be 6 months turned into 18 months back home, and it probably couldn't have come at a better time, because it really was a wake-up call as to what we want out of life. And all of our family are back home. We miss them dearly. The boys' cousins are there, and I do feel sad that they're not with them, growing up with them. But at the same time, in my heart of hearts, deep down, I know that what we're doing is right for the boys, and I feel dreadful that they're not with their grandparents. But I believe that this will turn them in, help them grow into being amazing young men who will do something different with their life, but because of this opportunity. And they might not be getting the private school level education, but I feel that what they're getting is going to go further than what they could have got back home. So yes, I do feel that this is going to continue. I don't think it will be on the boat forever, but I also don't think we'll go back home anytime soon. I don't think we could go back home after living this way. It would mean to be able to afford to live back in Australia, because only I work on the boat. We couldn't afford to live in Australia with one income. So it would mean that my husband would go back to work full time. We'd go back to getting a massive mortgage, and it would be like we never left. And sometimes I feel like I've got to take myself out of the picture and look at the life that we've created. We are so fortunate and lucky to be out here. I know that if we go home, as much as it's going to be amazing for the first few months, like it was last time, we're essentially going to go, what have we done? We've thrown away this amazing opportunity because it got a bit hard. Like, suck it up. We can figure it out. It'll get better again. What I do think will happen is I think that we'll come across an opportunity for something else. And I've said this all along. I think something will come up. I feel like in my heart it will be like we might get an opportunity to manage a hotel, or we might renovate a property in Italy, or we might buy one of those really cheap properties in Sicily and renovate it or something. Who knows? We're going to Sicily next month, so yeah, something will happen. If we can get the kids into school in Italy, it will maybe look like 6 months on, 6 months off the boat. Something like that could work as well. So who knows? And that's the beauty of this lifestyle. It's exciting to know that we don't know what life's going to look like in 6 or 12 months.
I admire your flexibility, and so much of what you have said really resonates with me. In that, for me personally, the really amazing things that I've done my life and these opportunities that have come my way were never anything I could have anticipated or planned. Like, some of the craziest things and most amazing experiences I had just happened organically. So the fact that you're open to, what, something's going to happen. And in the same way, when you watch that documentary about Laura Decker and you and your husband looked at one another and went, wow. And you had that inner knowing that this is what we're going to do. Even though it's like, this doesn't really make sense, but we're going to do this. I have those moments as well. And it's amazing to know that, you can have that, something will come and face you and it'll be like, well, I guess I'm doing that next. So knowing that and being open to those opportunities, it's such a gift to be able to have that flexibility and that openness to whatever might come your way. And then, of course, not only the desire, but the ability to jump on those opportunities as they arise.
We've made huge sacrifices to get here. So
Yeah.
While I do appreciate that we've been hugely lucky and blessed, we sold our house. So, we don't have everything that the Joneses have back in Australia. So we're not really trying to keep up with anyone anymore. We've just got our boat and a bit of house money in the bank. And as a lot of people would probably see that as us going backwards, but for us, it's set us free.
Likewise, when you live in a very small space, or in my case, when I was traveling full time, everything I owned fit into a bag. It takes consumerism out of the equation. Like, you can't buy anything because you don't have any space for it, or it has to replace something you already have. So you have to really think hard before you buy anything. But that also inherently makes it a more financially sustainable lifestyle, because I have since returned to my hometown and gotten an apartment. And I am a minimalist at heart. I really am. I mean, I lived out of a carry-on bag for 2 years and a checked bag for 10. But now that I have a roof, I have more stuff. And I buy things. And I keep thinking, wow, this is really, as much as I am this minimalist, you can't help it. I think it's like, do you know how the saying, your work, I think it's a Parkinson principle, where your work will expand to fill the amount of time that you allot it. I feel it's a similar principle with stuff. Like, your belongings will expand to fit the space that you give it. So
really?
You're living
and
on a boat.
as much money as you've got as well, don't you?
Exactly. Speaking of money, I'd love to talk to you about how you earn your living, because you have the amazing moniker of running the only PR agency in the world from a boat. But I know that prior to Rome Generation, you worked for the Australian government for 20 years. I'm curious to what extent that career and your experience informed your jump into entrepreneurship and running Rome Generation.
I worked for the Australian government, like you said, for almost 20 years. And in a way, it was like an anchor, no pun intended, but a bit of an anchor around my neck, because it was a safe job. It had great benefits, and I was always too scared to leave it. So I stayed there far longer than I wanted to. I mean, now I look back, I think, God, I could have had 2 or 3 different careers in that time. But it was a good job. It gave me what I needed. It gave me 3 lots of maternity leaves. I was able to take numerous leave without pays to travel the world. So I can't complain. And I learned, obviously, the skills, even though at the time I might not have realised, but the skills that have prepared me to run a PR agency. So I was working in a communications role, doing a lot of interviewing and writing reports, and it's pretty transferable to what I do now. So now I run Rome Generation, which is a PR agency for travel, leisure, and luxury brands. And I interview people, and I sometimes write the articles, not so much anymore, but we essentially try and spread the word, get their name out there, and get them as much publicity as we can. And in turn, I'm inspiring, because we work with travel brands, I'm inspiring other people to continue to travel. So that's really important to me, because my passion is travel. So I feel so fortunate that I'm literally traveling the world while running a travel related company. Like, this is my dream job, I suppose. Well, I don't know. Once you get it, you go, is this my dream job? Or maybe I could do something else. But if I had have known that this is what I would have been doing at the age of 17, when I was racking my brain trying to figure out, what could I do with my life? of course I would have been absolutely stoked with this outcome. So yeah, it is quite incredible that I've come up with this, and I've not yet found anyone else that runs a PR agency from a yacht. I found a couple that run it from an RV, but still not a yacht. So I'm going to keep claiming that one until I've heard otherwise.
Was the jump into entrepreneurship from a fairly steady, stable job scenario challenging? What did you learn along the way? Was there a learning curve for you in making that leap?
Oh, look, definitely. And I'm still learning to this day, and I'm sure I'll continue to learn for years to come. But if you ask my husband, he will say it was always a natural progression. I always knew that if I had my own job, I would work far harder than I ever would have in a regular job. I mean, don't get me wrong. Of course, I was a good worker, a good enough worker, but I wasn't passionate about my role in the government, and I'm passionate, like so much so about my job now that sometimes you could say I'm a little bit obsessed, but I think you have to be to
Yeah,
really become
totally.
successful, because it takes so much time to get it off the ground. So it hasn't been without its challenges. It's taken many late nights and lots of hard work, and I'm still continuing to grow and constantly learning. I mean, staff is just a new thing to me, so managing staff, especially remotely, is it's different and a challenge.
When I was working for someone else, but I had these entrepreneurial aspirations, I remember having this moment, this tipping point, where I was, I was very efficient at my work with my day job, and I would often finish my job early for the day. But instead of being rewarded for my efficiency, and allowed to, if I couldn't leave the office, I should hope at least I could like read a book or, study,
Yeah,
take some professional
yeah,
development courses. They were like, no, no, no,
no,
you have to pretend to be busy. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go get my own job. I'm going to be an entrepreneur because that way when my work is done for the day, I'll do what I want. The cosmic irony, of course, being that when you're an entrepreneur, your work is never done for the day.
never. Yeah.
But I've also connected some dots in what you just said regarding late nights and remote staff. In that hiring remotely is fabulous, but coordinating a remote staff, especially when it comes to coordinating meetings and stuff across time zones, no less, I feel can be a very challenging thing. How have you managed this, and do you have any advice for someone who's managing a fully remote staff themselves?
Look, it's certainly doable. I have a team member in Thailand, one in Australia, and a few in America. And then I've also got clients in Australia, and actually they're a team. One person's in Australia, one person is in Tahiti. So it's, I think, physically impossible for me and my contractor and the Australian and the person in Tahiti to be on a call at the same time. I mean, unless it's in the middle of the night for one person. So that's difficult. It usually just means that my contractor doesn't sit in on the meeting, and then I relay to her what she's missed out on. But look, other than that, it's just been a lot of, using the Time Buddy app on my phone to make sure that I don't mess up all the time zones, providing calendar links so people can kind of book a time and see it in their time, and then I don't have to calculate the time difference. And honestly, I haven't found it that difficult. The thing that I found more challenging is finding quality staff, and staff that hang around after, you train them all up and then they leave, or they promise you the world and then they kind of start and don't do anything. So I've had a challenge finding good people, but I'm willing to take the blame for that. Maybe I've chosen the wrong people. Maybe I'm not like such a great leader yet to inspire them to do good work, or maybe I'm just better at my job than I thought, and I'm getting these amazing results, and they're not able to keep up. I don't know. Maybe it'd be nice if it's the latter. But yeah, it's been a challenge.
So, do you have any advice for someone who is considering a long-term travel lifestyle plus remote entrepreneurship plus having a family and homeschooling a family as they travel? It's a package deal. There's a lot to take into consideration. So, how would you
Mm-hmm.
advise someone who is considering doing something similar?
Well, I think first of all, I am a huge believer in coaches. So we had a coach to get out here. I've had a PR coach. I've got a business coach. I love coaching. You get so much further than you would if you did it on your own. I mean, yes, it's going to cost you money, but you're going to make that money back so much quicker than if you had to figure it out for yourself. So that would be my advice. Number one is get a coach. Get a coach to become a digital nomad. then get a coach in your business that you decide to set up. The second advice is, if you're going as a family, make sure your partner's on board and figure out those roles as best as you can. I mean, once you're out there, it's fluid and you might figure out better ways along the way, but know that it's probably going to be challenging for both of you to work at the one time, because what are the kids going to do? I mean, you don't want them to be on iPads all day long and you're both working. What's the point of being out there traveling if that's the case? So that's probably my other bit of advice. And thirdly, I think just it's all about mindset. Don't if you believe you can do it, you will. And if you believe you can't do it, you won't. So I always looked at it like failure wasn't an option. And that's one of my qualities, I suppose, is I'm persistent and tenacious and flexible. And you do have to be flexible. You have to be able to not let this lifestyle get you down, because it will. There are going to be times when it's so challenging that you absolutely question everything and wonder why you've done this to yourself. Why did you sell your house and leave all of your friends and family to live on the other side of the world? And then the toilet breaks and your Apple laptop breaks and you've got no means of buying a new computer, and there are just so many things that can go wrong, and they will go wrong. And if maybe you have to be really honest with yourself, if that's going to be too much for you, then maybe have to look at something a bit different. Start with local travel in your country first or in your state and see how that goes. But yeah, I think we're both pretty able to roll with the punches, I suppose. Laugh at ourselves maybe when things go wrong. If you don't laugh, you'll cry, type of thing. So that would be my advice.
And I think it's excellent advice, because I think that rolling with the punches and being able to laugh at yourself, being able to appreciate the levity of a situation, at least with some retrospect, if not in the moment itself. I often say that travel's misadventures make for the best stories with a dose of hindsight.
Exactly.
But truly, the ability to roll with the punches, I think, is the only way to get through that, and to understand that it's not always roses and lollipops. There will be challenges along the way. And if we can see that, I mean, this is kind of life stuff as well. If you can see the challenges as development opportunities, you're going to come out better in the end. But also not to throw in the towel when the going gets tough, because it will get tough on the road. It is inherently a little more challenging. But those challenges can, like I said, they can be great opportunities as well to discover new things about ourselves and the people that we're with.
Exactly. And the highs always outweigh the lows. I've found that to be true the entire time. Fellow boaters say the same thing. There are so many lows, but the highs still always outweigh them. So it's worth it in the end.
And I think that's a good metric to use. If and when such a time comes where the highs don't outweigh the lows, then it's time to reevaluate and reiterate, because there are many ways to do that in lifestyle design. Erin, where and how can people find you and connect with you?
They can find my business at roamgeneration.com, and same handle on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So Roam Generation, and it's ROAM. Rome happens to be the name of our boat, and then that's what I named my business after. I love the word Rome. It means a lot to me. It also has a story behind it, because it was the theme song that played on the Kentucky bus of our very first overseas trip. So every morning they'd blast Rome If You Want To by the B-52s over the speaker, and awesome. That was just, we were usually hungover and so tired and had a thumping headache. But the tour guide would just blast at full ball, and somehow you'd spark up and enjoy the day. So that's where you can find me for my business, which is a PR agency, like I mentioned. And then if you're just interested in our story, that's called Sailing to Rome. So Sailing TOROAM, and again Facebook and Instagram. And there I just tell stories about what's going on in boat life and the trials and tribulations. I say it as it is and tell it as it is, because I'm not going to be posting these fake Instagram photos. It's really not like that out here, and people that do, from my experience, I don't possibly see how it could be as glamorous as what they're portraying it to be. But hey, they don't have kids maybe, so maybe everything's just amazing if you don't have kids. So yeah, that's where you can find me there.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate anybody who can keep it real, because I think that you are doing more of a service to the people who are following you by showing the real deal, good, bad, and otherwise, than you would be by posting those Instagram perfect shots. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And I will definitely provide links to all of your handles in the show notes and description. So anyone who's interested in clicking a link to connect with Erin, please do so. Erin, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Nora.
I'm Nora Dunn, and I'm otherwise known as the Professional Hobo, and I will catch you next time.